We're going to turn now to a man who has been making a late surge here in Iowa, former two-term senator from Pennsylvania, Rick Santorum. Santorum has spent more time in Iowa this cycle than any other candidate and was the first to visit all 99 counties in the state. With limited resources and money and staff, he's been traveling from event to event in a pickup truck. Earlier this week, a CNN Time poll showed him for the first time in the top 3. And now he's suddenly turning out larger crowds and drawing more media attention. He's hoping to make a strong showing in Iowa by courting conservative voters, just as previous caucus winner Mike Huckabee did 4 years ago.
And I said, you know, my surge is going to come on January 3rd. After the people of Iowa do what they do, which is actually analyze the candidates, figure out where their positions are, find out who's the right leader, who's got what it takes to defeat Barack Obama and to lead this country. And I've always relied that when that crunch time comes in these last 2 weeks, that's when we were going to start to pick up, and that's exactly what's happened on the ground. We've got a great grassroots organization. We've got a great team of people who are out helping us, and they're committed to making sure that this isn't a Pyrrhic victory in November, that we actually elect someone who's exactly what America needs to turn this country around, not someone who, well, just might be able to win and then not really do the change that's necessary in Washington. And I really haven't gone out and asked any United States senator. I haven't asked a single one to endorse me because I felt like I had to earn it first. That I had to go out and prove to I lost my last race. And the general consensus was, we like Rick, but you can't, who goes from losing their last Senate race to winning the presidential nomination? My answer to that was, well, Abraham Lincoln. Because it doesn't matter. I don't really need or want Washington endorsements. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to change Washington, and so I didn't really seek out endorsements. That's not what I'm coming here to do. I'm not coming to be buddies with my friends in the Senate and the House. I'm coming to change the entire nature of Washington, D.C. It's been one of the benefits, frankly, of being out and looking in and seeing what sometimes you said, I was running as a consistent conservative. There are votes that I took. Not that I advocated these things, but I voted for some things. I look back and say, why the heck did I do that? You get involved in sort of the idea that, well, you got to make things happen. And you forget sometimes, sometimes making some things happen is better. You're better off making nothing. I wonder if one of those. What I've said is that your role as a member of Congress, if you look at the Constitution, is to appropriate money. And, of course, your appropriate money, you're going to say where that money is going to go. You're not going to say, well, here's the money, Mr. President, spend it any way you want. And historically, Congress has taken the role of allocating those resources. And, Jim DeMint, who led the charge on pork barrel spending, earmarked things for years and years. And so what happened after I left Congress was budgets began to explode. When I was in the Senate, I voted for tough budgets. I voted for restrictions on spending and made sure that didn't happen. And as president, I proposed cutting $5 trillion over 5 years. I proposed we're going to balance the budget in at least 5 years, hopefully sooner. So if you're looking for someone who's voted for tough budgets, voted for spending restraints, what happened was abuse. There was abuse of this process, and I agreed with that there was an abuse, and it was leading to more spending. It was leading to bigger spending bills, and it had to end, and I supported it ending. Well, what changed was who he's running against. At the time, that was 5 days or 4 days before Super Tuesday. It was after Florida. And it became clear to me that there were two candidates in the race at that point. I thought Mike Huckabee, I would have loved to have Mike Huckabee out there, but I made the political judgment, right or wrong, that the best chance to stop John McCain, which was what my concern was. I had served 12 years with John McCain. I like and respect John McCain immensely personally, and he's done a lot of great things, obviously, for this country. But I did not think he was the right person, based on my experience and deep knowledge of his record, that he was the right person to be the nominee.
You said conservative principles?
Of course, everybody on that stage that is in these debates has conservative values vis-a-vis President Obama and generally reflects the Republican Party. The question is, are those values ones that you can trust when they become president of the United States? Is it someone who is going to fight not just for certain things, but for the entire Republican platform and plank? Why? Because those things integrate together. And you've heard me talk about this many times. You can't have a strong economy and just a strong economic plan unless you have strong families and you have moral values in this country. Why? Because that's the underpinning of our society.
And this is what she told the Associated Press. The question was, do you support legalized abortion if a woman has been raped or if she is the victim of incest? What about if a woman's health or life is in danger? Please explain your answer. Back then, you said, I would support laws that include exceptions in cases of rape and incest and when the life of the mother is at risk. So didn't you, when you were running for re-election, do the same thing you've accused Romney of, which is moderating your stance to try to win a Democratic state?
Today, I would support laws that would provide for those exceptions, but I'm not for them. In other words, I support the Hyde Amendment. The Hyde Amendment provides exception for rape and incest in the life of the mother. And so, yes, I support laws that provide those exceptions because if we can get those passed, then we need to do that. But
that's not a violation of your pledge that you took here in Iowa?
I supported the Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act. Now, does that ban all abortions? No. But it moves the country in the right direction. And so what I've said in the past consistently is I'll support laws that move the ball forward. That doesn't mean that's my position and that's where I'd like to go, but that's exactly the direction that we need to go in.
Isn't your history to try to moderate, both when fighting for re-election, but also as a member of Congress, to try to find common ground and to compromise?
Of course, my background is to find compromise. That's what you have to do in order to get things done. You don't compromise on your principles.
Do you fault Republican leaders in Congress for not doing more to make government work better through more compromise with the president?
You have to have someone you can work with, and this president has done more to divide than any other president that I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. This president goes out and gives speech after speech after speech trying to divide America between class, between income group, between racial and ethnic groups. This is the great divider in chief. And it's very difficult when you're being lampooned by the president on a regular basis, not just as a party but individually, to then, and the president, who I don't believe has met with Boehner or any of the Republican leadership in now 6 months. Hard to compromise and work with someone who won't meet with you. Almost immediately after the election, like with hours after the polls closed, Ahmadinejad announced that he won with 62% of the vote. Within a few days, President Obama basically said that election was a legitimate one.
What would that have done specifically to disarm
Well, I understand why the
Iran?
president would understand that, someone announcing a minute after the polls closed that he won. I mean, he comes from Chicago, so I get it. But when
the reality
he was president,
is there is no good option to disarm Iran.
Yes,
the Bush administration knew that. This administration knows that. Tell me what you would do differently then.
I put forth a 5-point plan that said fund the pro-democracy movement, use covert activity to disrupt
Which is already being done, Senator. You know that. There's covert activity to set back their program by the Israelis, by the United States.
Well, we know by the Israelis. We don't have any evidence. If you look at what's being done, most of the evidence actually trails back to the Israelis and the methodologies that they use. There's no evidence the United States is at all complicit in working at that. That's what I would be very direct that we would, in fact, and openly talk about this. Why? Because I want to make sure that Iran knows that when I say that Iran is not getting a nuclear weapon, that we will actually effectuate policies that make that happen. This president has not done that. He has opposed tough sanctions on Iran, on their oil program. Why? Because he's concerned about the economy and his reelection instead of the long-term national security interests of this country. I would say to every foreign scientist that's going into Iran to help them with their program, you will be treated as an enemy combatant, like an al-Qaeda member. And then finally, I would be working openly with the state of Israel, and I would be saying to the Iranians, you either open up those facilities, you begin to dismantle them and make them available to inspectors, or we will degrade those facilities through airstrikes and make it very public that we are doing that. The president has done
So you would lay out a red line, and if they passed it, airstrikes by President Santorum.
Iran will not get a nuclear weapon under my watch.
Well,
I mean, you can't go out and say, this is the problem with this administration. You can't go out and say, this is what I'm for, and then do nothing. You become a paper tiger, and people don't respect our country, and our allies can't trust us. That's the problem with this administration.